I was over there like the Tin Man, the Scarecrow. I was the
I see.
You know how he was like, "You can't win," and he was like all over the place. He had his stuff. I'm like, listen, that's my word. I'm so serious though. Like,
Wait, Aeisha, what they do? You can't win.
Michael was like, "You can't win," until Dorothy came and rescued and put him all together. It was. I'm laughing at it now. That's how it was.
That is so funny. Oh my God.
They literally stumped me there. They stumped me to Mount Sinai completely open.
I can't eat shit. Hello, and welcome back to season 2 of I Can't Eat Shit podcast. I'm your host, actress, comedian Shondalia White. And yeah, people, I can't eat shit, and you know that shit is annoying. I started I Can't Eat Shit podcast because I was secretly ill for many years. People asked me a lot of questions about it, so now I'm healed and I'm ready to talk about it. But for season 2, I'm bringing in my friends and experts to talk with us about all this stuff. And today, I have a very special guest. Actress, musician, voice actor, inspirational speaker, and patient advocate, along with my sister, Aeisha Reese.
Woohoo! Hey, y'all.
And we'll be talking about Crohn's, short bowel syndrome, and the diet. So let's get into it. Hi, Aeisha.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, girl. Hey. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm on here, y'all. I'm on here, y'all.
We out here. So that everybody knows, Aeisha is my actual biological sister. And I couldn't wait to have you on the podcast, boo, because you are the epitome of my podcast. Everything, you literally can't eat shit. You have gone through so many different diet changes and body changes. You are a living testimony of God's grace and literally a miracle. And I just couldn't wait to have some sort of platform where we could talk about this together and other people could hear your story and maybe get some tips from you. So I'm just going to tell people why I brought you on the podcast. Aeisha has actually dealt with Crohn's, short gut syndrome. She's an intestinal transplant recipient multiple times. And she's had a variety of different ailments and modifications to her diet. So, yes, you're going to be on the podcast, you know? So, right? So we're going to jump right into it. Tell me, what was it like dealing with Crohn's and the diet? So that's like the first thing.
Right. So Crohn's, let's explain Crohn's for people who may not know. Crohn's is an inflammatory bowel disease, meaning it affects the bowel, right? And it's autoimmune, meaning that it is your body attacking the intestines, which will cause inflammation, okay? And so the inflammation is the result of your intestines having bad bacteria, but a huge accumulation of it, right? So for me, I apparently had Crohn's since probably before I knew, okay? And so I had my first flare-up when I was a sophomore in college. Did not know anything about Crohn's, didn't think that it was obviously Crohn's, and it was told that it was something with my gallbladder. And so there was an absence in treatment. And so when I moved to New York City and, pursued my career on Broadway, that's when it hit, right? That's when another flare-up hit. And when you consider environmental factors like New York, where you walk everywhere, it's super rigorous, that's when the flare-up was very intense. And I found out about the actual diagnosis of Crohn's. And
so can I just stop you right there? So just so I can ask you a quick question about that. So you had flare-ups based on the stress of your body, like what was happening as far as environmental changes, as far as maybe just the strenuous, how strenuous it is being a Broadway performer. That's kind of what was going on?
Well, actually, no. So the first flare-up that I had was when I was in college, and that was it was a flare-up where I had intense. So to explain how that felt, it was Oh God, the best way to explain that feeling, it felt like a monster had claws and was just ripping everything inside.
Oof.
That's how the first flare up felt, right?
Okay.
And I didn't know what was going on, right? And I was told that I needed to change my diet, and it was something with my gallbladder. But that's
Okay.
what it was, actually Crohn's disease, and I should have gotten treatment then. But here
Okay.
I am. That was like in 2010. Years later, in 2014, when I moved to New York City, because after you have a flare up, things can get back to normal, and that was
Mm.
like an earlier diagnosis flare up.
I
But
got you.
at
So you
that
were like, I'm fine. Okay.
Exactly. And I changed my diet. Things changed, I eliminated dairy or something, I think. And then once I moved to New York, one of the biggest things about Crohn's is they always say that it's environmental. That's one of the things, right? So if you're in a stressful environment, obviously New York was a stressful environment. My first time being in a big city from a small town, Flint, Michigan, right? Moving to
Mm-hmm.
New York City to pursue my career, boom, another flare up hit, and that one was the severe one. It
Mm.
wasn't even because of the work. I hadn't even really gotten started. I just went to like, callbacks and callbacks. And before I could even finish those off, I was very ill, and to the point where this flare up prevented me from walking. It was very intense. I was bedbound at a certain point, right?
Wow.
Because of not being treated,
Mm-hmm.
right? It led to, not eating, to being very frail. I was like 75 pounds. It
Wow.
was it was really intense. So, what saved me in that case was I had an emergency surgery, and that one was what you call a temporary colostomy surgery. And so I was at a point where I actually needed treatment, and the treatment is called infliximab, also known as Remicade.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what actually is used to treat Crohn's, one of the treatments to treat Crohn's. And that was done, they taper you off where you start off every week, every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, then every 8 weeks.
Gotcha.
Intravenously, right? So yeah, that was initially with Crohn's. That was the first process of it. And having a colostomy bag was like having a brand new world, having a brand new
Mm-hmm.
body, right? Having
Mm-hmm.
to adjust to using that, excluding excreting waste from it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge process. Knowing how to actually attach and
Mm-hmm. Clean it. Keep the
clean it,
yeah.
not having control of when the waste will enter into that bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very humbling, very just a whole new thing, right?
Right. And so how did your diet play into that at that time?
Right. So of course, in the I'll say in Western medicine, they say, oh, there's not really a specific diet. Just try to stay away from beans and things like that may cause you to have like a firmer stool,
Like
or
bloating and stuff like that?
right, or cause it to bloat inside the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish at that time I would have transitioned to that diet then.
Mm.
Um, but actually, no, I realized I did. In the beginning, I didn't, though. But it was introduced to me, the specific carbohydrate diet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, to explain the specific carbohydrate diet, which, by the way, I know you'll find this very interesting, Shondalia. The person who created this diet, it was a pediatrician by the name of Sidney Hoss. This was back in like 1920. And they created it as a means to cure celiac disease.
What?
Yes. Um, and I
Dang,
knew
it ain't work for celiac.
And I actually knew this, but I forgot about it because I remember it was written on the book that I got called Breaking the Vicious Cycle. So,
Mm-hmm.
Breaking the Vicious Cycle is a book by Elaine Gottschall. This was
Okay.
in 1987. She created this based off of Dr. Sidney Hoss's um, the specific carbohydrate diet. So,
Mm-hmm.
what this diet consists of is pretty much abstaining from high fibrous foods,
Okay.
right? High fibrous foods that are going to irritate the bowel,
Yeah.
right? So I have to explain Crohn's, or because this is the thing about any IBD, which is inflammatory bowel diseases, right? That's the umbrella. It is the result of bad bacteria that is inside of the intestines. And I learned this from the book. It's a process called fermentation, okay? And so the thing about fermentation is this is what literally happens after eating whatever type of food that you've eaten that has bad bacteria, right? What happens is this bad bacteria genetically mutates with your good bacteria.
Oh.
So it's almost like cloning itself.
Yeah.
And so our white blood cells, when they go to our intestines, okay, to kill off the bad bacteria, what they do is they also kill off the good.
It's almost like having a yeast infection.
Okay.
You know when you have to treat a yeast infection and they give you the antibiotics and it's killing everything. It's not just killing the good. It's killing bad, it's killing the good too.
That's right. And that's what happens in fermentation. Exactly. That's exactly it. It's just like, we're just going to wipe out everything. And as a result, what happens is just sometimes the bad is left. And so that's where the inflammation and the pain comes in. That's where the irritation is from. It's because it's just bad. And so your white blood cells are attacking it. Hence it being autoimmune, because your body is attacking itself.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
that's like a great breakdown, Aeisha.
Oh, thank you.
Listen. It is. I'm like, wow, because I can see it now. Like, I'm like,
right?
That makes sense.
It's almost like in war, okay? The way I look at it is like, it's war in there, okay?
Yep.
Ecosystem of where they're trying to take care of you, and they're like, you know what? Just kill them all.
Yep.
Just wipe them all out.
Just wipe it out.
We don't know who to trust at this point.
Right, at this point.
Just kill them all, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're literal spies inside. So it's amazing to me, like, but that's how I see it in my mind. And so what happens is, for this particular diet, the specific carbohydrate diet, there's different types of cellulose food. It comes as a monosaccharide and then polysaccharide. So mono meaning simplest form of food. So that would be white rice.
Okay.
White bread, not fibrous bread.
Like the wheat breads or like the grain breads.
Bread, because you think, okay, that's healthy, right? But no, for you want something that's going to be smooth with the gut, and a mono, meaning the simplest form. So no added preservatives. You're eating things in its simplest form. Agriculturally, the simplest form. And then that also includes like, what was it? Oh, vegetables. So when it comes to vegetables, right? Or vegetables, whatever, tomato, you want to make sure that you are cooking them, but not to kill all the nutrients. Because when you eat vegetables raw, it could be really fibrous and cutting, right? To the intestines.
I just want to jump in before I forget
Please go ahead.
I had to do this. And I didn't have Crohn's, but when I was healing my gut, I literally had to go do the very similar diet, because in order for my body to kind of reset, I had to go back to the simplest form of food. And also when it came to I can't eat salads all the time. At one point I was eating salads all the time, and my naturopath was like, no, don't eat salads all the time, because unless you're cooking some of it. You actually have to cook it down just a little bit, because your digestion system is actually working harder to break that down, and it was hurting me. So
more rigorous,
and it's very rigorous on the intestine. So I think that's really interesting. Just because
because this diet was based on celiac.
Yeah,
it was initially rooted in celiac. And get this. This was something I have forgotten, because, it was brought to my memory about I actually gave my book away to someone, and this is the reason why. So a friend of mine back in the day, their child had autism. If you know something about the intestines is also considered the second brain in our body. And so what Elaine Gottschall in her book, Breaking the Vicious Cycle, what she found out is not only is this diet to a celiac or ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, which are all inflammatory bowel diseases, but it's also a token to healing autism. Because if you have a
Wow.
clear gut, then you have a clear mind.
Do you know? Listen, this is all so great. And this is just the universe right here, God. Because it's just like I had my one of my naturopath doctors or nutrition, one of the two, they started working with kids with autism. And it makes complete sense. Like when you're, and I was like, that's kind of random. Why would they do that? But now I understand
Mhm.
because, like you said, it all is kind of linked.
Yes, the
Wow.
gut is connected to the brain. That's why they call it the second brain in our body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a clear gut, then your mind is clear.
Yes.
And so a lot of people, Elaine Gostro advocated also, if you have a child that has, autism, you have them use this diet. The simplest forms of food, right? Monosaccharide. When they start to add all those preservatives, all those, it becomes polysaccharide, which means that's just a fancy way of saying multi cells,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which you don't want all those cells. You just want
Mm-hmm.
a simple form.
And then from because I know I had to temporarily do this diet, I had to do a very simple diet and slowly add in things so we can find out what was triggering me. In addition to tons and tons of tests, you can check out season 1. I'll link you below with some of the things that how I learned and what was happening. But specifically, yeah, this is just I'm just like,
It's a lot,
wow.
right?
Yeah, my brain is like going nuts because
Because it's
it's
connecting the dots.
connecting the dots. I'm like, what? Whoa, this is all, whoa, it's all linked.
It makes sense. Wait, that's why they.
Very exciting. So wait, one thing I wanted to ask, so how did all of this lead to the short bowel syndrome then?
So very good question. So, I was actually doing very well. My intestines were getting healed from this treatment. And I just want to say too, before I go into this, that diet is a pivotal role in any IBD, right? In my case, I was so far along with not receiving treatment, or in what we can say is I didn't act. If I had have known, I could have been redirected and completely changed my diet the
Mm-hmm.
right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the specific carbohydrate diet. And perhaps I wouldn't have even needed treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Elaine Gostro, when she discovered it, they were doing all these types of treatments with her daughter who was dying, that was 1 year old from some type of IBD, and she
Mm-hmm.
heard about the pediatrician, right? And she tried the diet, and she started to get well.
Oh
So
wow.
in my case, if I would have known about this and known that, oh, you're battling with Crohn's, I would have started that diet, and it probably I wouldn't have to go through having a colostomy bag. But in
Mm.
my case, I had to go that route, right? The hard route. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had this colostomy bag, and the plan was, it was a temporary one. The plan was to reconnect the intestine after it was healed, right?
Right.
Because the Remicade treated the inflammation and it
Mm-hmm.
was doing well. However, about 3 years later, what began to happen was my feet were swelling.
Mm-hmm.
My legs and my feet were swelling, which to the colon surgeon was evidence that there had to be blood clots. And
Mm.
I did all these tests. They couldn't find anything. They were like, it's miraculous. We can't find any blood clots anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the top of the year, in March of 2017, that's when the blood clots hit. And what was happening was the blood clots were traveling, they were hiding from the heart, the lungs, and then finally my intestines. And this
Oh
is where you
wow.
entered, right? You and my family entered, because what happened was I went into the hospital. They gave me heparin, which treats blood clots. They thought everything was fine, but then I went into
Right.
sepsis. I went into all these things,
Yeah.
fainted, woke up to find out that they had to have this surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course I was in a coma, right, for a couple months,
Right.
induced. And after several surgeries, they had to unfortunately completely remove my intestine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because of the blood clots traveling around, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then thus hitting the intestines.
So
So
the surgery, it stopped the blood clots from traveling?
No, that was the thing. The blood clots were traveling and it hit it. And they were trying to save it, but they couldn't.
I got you. So, just so I make sure I'm clear. So, as a result of the blood clots hitting your intestine, it made it so that they had to get rid of the intestine.
That's correct. Because what happens is if it hits an artery in the intestines and it blocks the flow of blood, what happens is it dies, right? The organ dies. That can happen to any of our organs where it becomes dead. And so now if it's dead, you got to get that carcass out of there, right? You can't have a dead organ inside, right? So they had to remove it. And that's when I was in trouble because in that particular hospital and facility, they didn't have the resources. They didn't have the science and technology to help what you call in this case intestinal failure, right? So I was at a 15% chance of living in this case, right? And so what happened was I was blessed and fortunate where my surgeon was friends with other surgeons who specialize in this intestinal failure transition.
And this is the small intestine, correct?
This is correct.
Just for everyone.
And so what they said was if I got well enough, I could be transferred into their care. That's Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City.
Shout out to Mount Sinai.
I love y'all. And I could receive an intestinal transplant. And of course, we were like, what? That exists? Yes, it does.
Yes. And this is, to be clear so people understand, this is a small intestinal transplant because you had the large and the small.
That's correct. The small intestinal transplant. As you know, the intestines are very, very long, but you could live with the small the small intestine, right? And so this was
you can live without it, you're saying?
No, this is what you can, having that is good enough, basically.
Oh, just having the small intestine is enough. So if you don't have the large intestine, you can still live with the small intestine.
Correct.
But what about the opposite way? Can you live without the small?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that because I know that they usually just do small bowel.
Got you. So what's the difference between the small intestine and the small bowel?
That's a good question. There's different. To understand that, you have to understand the digestive system. So don't laugh, but listen. The reason why I understood was because of that first episode of On the Magic School Bus. Because they break it down. They break down the whole thing about the digestive system, which is, that kid swallowed the gum. Of course, we know the first stage is the incisors, the teeth. And then it goes down our esophagus. The esophagus is also a part of our digestive system. And then it goes into the stomach. And then the stomach breaks it down. And then once the stomach breaks it down, it goes into if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the large first. And the large intestine dehydrates, takes all the nutrients. It breaks it up. And then, it breaks it up, I think, the large. And then it goes into the small, and the small is what takes out the nutrients and all of that. And it sends it to all different areas of your body, right? To the liver, to the kidneys, to your heart. Right? The heart pumps it all throughout all the body. So basically, this is the thing to know. The intestines' responsibility is to provide your body with hydration and nutrients. Hydration meaning fluid, nutrients meaning all the things that you eat, you get vitamins, you get resources, all these things that your body needs to survive. It comes from that, right?
Okay, great. Oh, I love this. I love the Magic School Bus reference.
I might have confused. Oh, the Magic School Bus, sorry.
Oh, the Magic School
Bus. So guys, listen, I might have confused the large and the small. So I recommend you watch the first episode of the Magic School Bus. Because sit down. Listen, it's sometimes that simple. But it's school, it's children education.
And I'll also link it because children education, they really do be breaking it down. So you like, I didn't learn this right. Like
literally, anyone can get it.
It's like learning another language. You can watch kids TV and be like, nosotros somos, like,
It's the best way to
It's
understand.
great. I love it. Like Dora. You know what I mean? Like that's
Like
how I was
Dora.
thinking. Dora the Explorer.
Like click here.
Yeah.
It's
I
literally, I'm
love
telling
that.
you guys, this is the best way for you to understand. But yeah, so I took you through that just so you can have an understanding of, you know, the role, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you know what happens when it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
So then that means you have to get hydration and nutrients some way. So when I was transferred into their care at Mount Sinai, I was basically like the um
Guinea pig.
I don't want to say again. Oh no, not a guinea pig. I was over there like the what's the Tin Man, the Scarecrow. I was the
Oh, I
Scarecrow.
get you. I see.
You know how he was like, "You can't win," and he was like all over the place. He had his stuff. I'm like, listen, that's what it was. I'm so serious though. Like, it was really,
Wait, Isha, what they do? You can't win.
you know, when Michael was like, "You
Ah!
can't win," until Dorothy came and rescued and put him all together. That's what it was. I'm serious, y'all. I'm laughing at it now. That's how it was.
That is so funny. Oh my God.
They literally stumped me there. They stumped me to Mount Sinai completely
Ah,
open
yes.
and
So
obtuse and all over it was so severe that people, patients that were my roommate, they would be talking, they would walk by, they were like,
just wide open.
just like, oh
And when
my
you say
God,
wide open, you mean your stomach, correct?
my abdomen.
Yeah,
So
just so
I
people
did be
understand, can
clear.
get a
So
visual.
pardon
Yeah.
me, everyone. So when I was at the previous establishment, they basically cut me open to prevent any type of infection to happen in that area, and they would patch me up with gauze.
Mm-hmm.
She seen, remember?
Yeah, I
That's
saw it. Yes.
you were like sucking out like any juice that came in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they sent me right over there,
Just
basically
like
like
that.
that, just
Yeah.
like that. Okay, how hood, but
That's so hood. That
they
is
sent me
so
over there
hood.
so hood.
Look at you
They
said you
trifling.
can't win.
I couldn't win, girl.
Oh my God, I'm in tears.
I can't win.
That's
Well,
so
listen, they sent me
funny.
over there like that, right? So my abdomen was open, and that's pretty much how they had me. And so what they had was a washout surgery where they washed me out and then they patched me back up together. And that
Mm-hmm.
surgery, I'm not kidding you, was like 14 hours, okay,
Wow.
of them having to, because you know it's tedious work. This
Yeah.
abdominal
Yeah.
area, very like every nick and cranny has to match up, and so it took them about that time. And so this is where I entered short bowel syndrome. Okay,
Gotcha.
so they had the resources and the therapies for this, and so what short bowel syndrome consisted of, or short gut syndrome, tomato tomato, pretty much what I had was a central line, okay, a central line meaning an access point for you to be connected to some type of treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I had, right? And I also had a G tube drain. A
Mm-hmm.
G tube drain was the replacing of the intestine, because the thing that's so amazing about the body is even when one organ is absent, the others will still function, right? In this case, my all my other organs, meaning my stomach, is still producing gastric juice, and my liver is still producing bowel.
Mm-hmm.
So this needs to be drained out, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's the part of the digestive system that's missing. So
Yes.
that's what the G tube drain does. So the access point, the reason for that is because I would do a treatment called TPN, which is temporary parenteral nutrients.
And
And
this is how
so
you're eating.
this is how you eat. So TPN is intravenous. It goes through your bloodstream, okay? And it varies on whatever your condition is. But for me at that time in 2017, it was from 14 to 16 hours, okay? Every day, that treatment. And you will have a nurse that will come to visit every week. They would clear your central line to make sure you didn't get an infection, right? Because you,
It's
listen,
easy to get an infection.
you do not want an infection, okay? That's the worst thing imaginable. So they had to make sure that it was very clean, right? Your access point. And you were responsible for injecting the vitamins inside of the TPN. So pretty much everything you would get through food, I got through this man-made nutrients called TPN. Okay,
Yes.
and
That's a blessing.
it is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
However, one of the shocks, right? Because it was almost like I thought just having a colostomy bag was a big deal, right? With the whole Crohn's thing, this was like, whoo, this was a lot. Okay, whoo, this was a challenge. I remember when I came home, I was like, because I had so many surgeries, right? I mean, at the previous establishment, they had so many surgeries. I think they had like 9 surgeries. And then, them having that big surgery to wash me up. So at this point, I had like 10 surgeries, maybe more. I came home, I was like, because I couldn't even eat, it was like, ugh, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just such a shock to have to do that, just to process actually having to be basically my own nurse.
Yeah.
And get this, if you don't have an intestine, that means your body's not able to digest food, which means you're not eating. So to have to fathom that I was not going to eat was a lot. And believe it or not, it happened for 2 years.
Yeah, and you're a foodie, so that's a lot. Like you said,
baby, you better know it.
Yeah, your girl can cook. She can cook too. I'm sure that was just like, oh my gosh.
Fortress. Fortress. But let me tell you something. It made me passionate about what is being put in on the plate and in your mouth. And even then I began to prepare myself on these are meals that I'm going to make. And I used to try it on at that time, I was part of a big church community. And then the church started in my actual apartment. Praise the Lord.
Hey.
And so we obviously, let me tell you something. Any gathering, there's going to be eating.
Right. There has to be food.
Not eating makes you realize how much people eat.
Yes.
Unnecessarily.
Right.
Like you're just like.
I feel like also too, having restrictions just in general, you start paying attention to how much people eat or what is there that's not good, like how much you go to an event and there's nothing for anyone with restrictions, or how much people don't pay attention to the cross contamination or the cross contact or anything, or what their brand, what they think you should have. Oh, you can do a salad though, right? We got lettuce over there, and it's always that.
They always turn to salad.
And like you said, when you're like, well, what if you can't have a salad because you actually can't have the raw vegetables.
It's like, exactly. Taking, when, like you said, placing limitations makes you realize how many things are taken for granted.
Yes, absolutely. You actually had a transplant at finally, and you actually had 2. Is it 2 or 3?
2.
You had 2 transplants, and you were preparing this whole time for when you got that transplant so you would have the proper diet.
Correct.
So that things would move smoothly and you wouldn't mess up the small intestine, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's correct. I was using certain, actually it's interesting, at that time where I was staying, I had different roommates from all over the world. And so some were from Nigeria, some were from Germany. So I would like see what they were making. Even like I remember one from Korea. I was like, "Oh, you make that?" And then I would make my modified version of that.
That's smart.
And
there's
then
another way to do that.
There's another way to do that.
Always.
That's correct. And I would give it to the people in the church and experiment and see how they liked it.
Now that's a good way to experiment, because you give it to other people. That's how you kind of know if it's good, like if people like it.
Exactly.
And then kind of base it on, okay, yeah, I'll like this probably when I come back to food.
Exactly. And and I was very blessed and fortunate to have that, but man, it was trialing. I can tell you, it was trialing. You realize, when people say, I could never do that. You realize, never say never.
Oh, yeah.
You never realize how much strength. There's a scripture, 2 Corinthians, where the Apostle Paul talks about when he is weak, God is strong.
Mm-hmm.
That our strength is made perfect in our weakness. And that is truly what gave me strength. It's a supernatural strength to endure, to sustain. And that's what kept me. It having that kind of perspective of Christ.
Yeah, bless. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's really beautiful. So then we're moving into you you had your transplant, the food, the diet worked, the one that you came up with. And what did that entail? What types of stuff helped with that transplant?
Exactly. So I would add the blood type, things that I saw from that. I know some people feel like it doesn't work for them, but I saw actual results in that. For instance, cream of wheat, but I was doing cream of rice because that was
Oh.
better for my blood type, right?
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Interesting, right? And also, I knew that I wanted to eventually go vegan. So I was using the specific carbohydrate diet, using some of the foods from the blood type. And I was also saying, okay, now I'm going to eliminate meat completely.
Mm.
Right? So these were the 3 different diets that I kind of meshed together.
Yeah, it was like a progression for you once you had that transplant, and it worked for you.
And it worked for me.
It
Yes,
fully, it made you feel fully like replenished.
correct.
Okay, fantastic.
I wanted to make sure that what was entering my body was pretty much just wholesome. Nothing that bacteria can get into, right? Nothing that can accumulate mucus, right? Eliminating mucus because that's the gateway to disease. It's an opener to that. So
Mm-hmm.
once I was able to put that into my own hands, I added that diet. And then I eventually became 100% vegan. And listen, I'll be transparent from watching Bobby Flay and what are you going to do with this thing? It created a creativity. So I would try one thing like eggplant. What can I
Mm-hmm.
do with this? What are some things I can do with this? How can I modify this here? How can I do this? And
Just for people to know, Aeisha did not like vegetables growing up. She was not into the vegetables, so this is why this is a big deal for her, okay? Not just because she needed it for her actual treatment and healing. She just never liked vegetables before, or fruit. You didn't like fruit either, right?
so this is true. So it actually was more so fruit than vegetables. Like
Okay.
if I could choose, I would say, okay, I want this vegetable, then the fruit. But even the vegetables that I ate were limited, right? So
Right.
it's a big deal that I actually went into this world, like she's saying, because it's like it's unheard of.
Right.
Aisha, but
Aeisha?
yeah, Aisha, okay. And yeah, so I started to do that, and then I started to spread awareness even in the community that I was in my church community, because it's interesting how we'll say, "Oh, let's let God in my finances. Let's let him in my relationship." What about your diet?
Ooh.
Then it was silence.
Oh, talk to him.
Whenever I was but don't we need to include God also in our diet?
Mm-hmm.
These were my head ministers. They were like, Aisha, everybody's not ready for that.
Oh,
I said, well, let me tell you, we need to spread that awareness
yes.
because this is our temple for a reason.
Yes.
A home where God wants to live. This should be Bethel, which is called the place where God lives. We are This is temple, but we are spirit as God is spirit, and he wants to live inside. So if this is his home, we want to make sure his home is clean,
What?
is pure, is open. So this was the awareness I was trying to spread, but like
Period.
everybody's not ready for that. In
Yeah.
fact, when you go to a lot of churches, what do they have? Not healthy food.
Right.
But we're gonna change that.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue into Miracle Works Ministries that you're doing. So go
Yes,
ahead
ma'am.
and tell everyone about that.
Right. So let me explain how that started. So, when I was transferred into the care of Mount Sinai Hospital and um, they patched me up, and I remember I just kind of was in a place of stillness. And let me tell you about stillness. In stillness, there is comfort. In stillness, you'll find composure. In stillness, you'll find clarity. And so that's where I found the clarity. Um, and also, stillness yields to rest. It's rest. And so I was forced to be in that moment. And so I remember I was like, God, I don't know why this has happened. What should I do? Um, what did I do to deserve this? And I remember God told me, you forgot what you asked me. And I'm like, what did I ask for this? To be jacked up? And then he said, no, what did you put on your prayer petition? And I'm like, okay, I'm going through it. And I said, oh, to be healed of Crohn's disease. And so God was like, okay, well, where does Crohn's disease happen? And I was like, in the intestines. And then he said, well, where is your intestines? And then I was like, oh, they're not here.
So
And
you
he
are
said,
cured.
bingo.
Yep.
And so that's when I realized, wow, I have to be open to the way of Yahweh. His ways are not my ways. So I was on my way of healing. And so I said, okay, what do I need to do then? It's something I feel like I need to do. A friend of mine from the community ran in right when I was having this moment with God and said, can't we go to the hospitals? Can't we? And I said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the hospitals. So I use because I'm a patient, right? So I went into the hospitals and I told them, can we just, maybe pray for people? Can we, and we were artists, we're artists, right? So we used our arts as the
Gifts.
tools to our gifts. Yeah, we used our gifts as tools to, inspire people. So
Yeah.
we were like, yeah. And I had good relationships with, the nursing coordinator and the nursing directors. Are like, sure, Aeisha, do whatever you want. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. So I remember I went in there and they brought people, kidney transplant, people who were waiting for intestinal transplants. We sang to them and the rest was history. And then we kept going up there. Next thing you know, we're getting requests. So we're going into these rooms, we're praying for people. We may sing with them. Next thing I know, we have people who got trumpets, all kind of things coming with us in there. And it started off where it was at Mount Sinai. Then we went out to the previous establishment.
Yeah.
And then now we're at all boroughs of New York City doing this.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. And
I remember seeing this build and like I was just like, wow, if anybody can make something happen, you can anyway. But it was just nice to see it actually coming into fruition. That I was like, oh wow, this idea, I just love seeing it, and I know it's such a great thing. So if anyone knows anyone that needs that, definitely reach out to Aeisha. She's in New York.
I just want to say this.
You can tell them a little bit more about it. In addition to National National Donate Life Month. Right now it's National Donate Life Month. So while you're saying the rest of that, make sure you speak to that as well.
Absolutely. So this is the most important part about that. So Miracle Work Ministries, the most important part was when we were going around and we were praying for people, we were laying our hands on them, we were using, our gifts, and we saw people who were pronounced dead risen. People who had a straight line, all of a sudden, beep, beep, beep. We saw miracles.
Wow.
Hence, it's called Miracle Work Ministries. And that's when I realized that this thorn in the flesh, like the Apostle Paul, was a gift. Yeah. He put me in this situation because I'm the ambassador that has access to these people that no one would ever have access to.
Right.
And so
that's how I was born. And then, so what about National Donate Life Month?
Yes, ma'am. So April is National Donate Life Month. Yes, it's April. And let me tell you, it is pretty much all about spreading the awareness about the importance of organ and tissue donation as well as transplantation. There's a huge misconception, especially, I just have to say this, especially in the brown and Black communities, the people of color, our people, they have this misconception that people who pass on, if it's our people, that our organs are being transplanted. Misused. yeah, they're being
Mm-hmm.
misused, or they're going to just only one group of people, aka maybe just a group of white people. No,
Mm.
this is a huge misconception. I'm letting y'all know that right now. That is not what's happening. You see me. I'm a young brown girl and I benefited from a transplant, right?
Yeah, I'll make sure. Also, I'll put something in the description. We'll talk about it and I'll see what resources you think would be the best thing to share with people so that we can make sure we spread the word.
Yeah.
And just to wrap this segment up, any advice for anyone struggling with autoimmune disorders like Crohn's, short gut syndrome, or anything along those lines, any kind of IBD, any last minute tips or anything?
You can overcome. You can be the defier of odds of your circumstance. Do not allow the diagnosis to define who you are. The key is knowing whose you are. Once you understand that and develop what I call a Christ perspective, you will see that you have the power to overcome any adversity thrown at you. And also surround yourself with like minded community. That is key as well. You can't do it alone, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible.
All things are possible. And with that, let's go ahead. We're going to move into our cooking segment. There's another way to do that. This segment is called There's Another Way to Do That, where I teach you how to modify recipes based on my restrictions. For season 2, I am modifying dishes inspired by my guest. And today, it's Aeisha Reese. So, Aeisha, tell me what your favorite dish is.
Yes, my favorite dish is the gluten-free meatloaf. Mm.
Ooh. So, tell us a little bit about that. Why this gluten free meatloaf?
Well, number one, to be very honest, it's super quick to make. Like
Okay.
it's super fast. If you have a guest or you're making it for a group of people, it will feed everyone will be fed and satisfied. So
Mm-hmm.
it was one of the earliest things that I came up with once I received my intestinal transplant and I started to do the whole specific carbohydrate diet.
Mm.
Yeah, it was one of my go-tos. And um, play uncle in the family introduced it to me. And so I created my own modified version of it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what do people usually get wrong, do you think, when they're making meatloaf? Because I always feel like when you watch TV, people can get meatloaf very wrong.
Yeah.
It almost reminds you when you hear people say it's almost like saying liver's worth, even though it's
Hot
not the
you're
same
like,
thing.
oh,
But I
yeah.
feel like that same ideation is in the mind, like meatloaf. Only specific people love meatloaf. So, what do you think people get wrong?
That's a good question. I would say I feel that they probably put too much in it. Like they think, oh, I need to add this ketchup and I need to add this and I need to add that. And I think maybe having too much of a ketchup or too much of this can alter the taste.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think maybe like I know bread sometimes people use that and sure, okay, fine. You can use bread, but it's not always a necessity. So maybe adding too much of the bread. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about like a
The
balance and
balance. So tell me, how do you modify it? How do you modify it then?
right. So for me, I don't use bread, and what I do is I prep and I put whatever vegetables I want. So like for me, I would use the bell pepper. I would chop up maybe some garlic, right? And I will also add maybe for some because I know not everyone likes onions, but maybe if you want that, then I add all my herbs. This is all in the ground meat. I would
Mm-hmm.
use ground turkey, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um it's a lean meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you just add your herbs, which I will add some oregano. I will go on and add some rosemary. I will go on and add a little paprika, the sweet one, not the smoked one, and salt, obviously, right? And a dash of garlic, right? And yeah, maybe you can even add thyme, sage, whatever you want to add, like to get a blend of flavors. And then
What,
you just use your hands to just
mold it?
mold it into a loaf.
Do you
And
actually have any sides, like favorite sides that you like to have with it?
absolutely. So this is the way I modified it because I realized I really enjoy like rice. Okay, rice with some type of delicious gravy. And so I was like, oh, what if I cook the rice? Because that's the first thing you should actually do is cook the rice. I prefer jasmine rice because I love the earthy taste and it's really easy to make. And once you cook the jasmine rice, you add a little salt, and then you surround it with that loaf, the loaf that you just, I know you're thinking like, wait a minute, I'm putting around the raw. Yes, you are. The raw meat, you surround it with that rice and then you make your gravy. And so for me, I love mushrooms and I love a mushroom gravy. Who doesn't love a good mushroom gravy? If you're not, allergic,
Yeah.
if you are allergic to mushrooms, then just do it without mushrooms,
Yeah.
right?
How do you think I will do? Because I'm not gonna tell you everything I do because I want you to be cooking along with me in the commentary. But I will. I know. How do you think I would do with my modification inspired by you?
Ooh, girl, you would do excellent. I mean, honestly, I can see exactly the route you take. Obviously, you would take out the bell peppers, you take out the paprikas, the spice, whatever things, right?
Okay,
Um,
all right. Aisha, I know what you gonna do. I know what you gonna do.
girl,
Be sure to check out how I modify Aisha's favorite dish on my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Up next, Shondalia's Inside Scoop. This is Shondalia's Inside Scoop, where my life is a trivia question. You've seen food trivia. Well, this gets personal. Can you tell me if you know what's true? The game is simple. I'll ask you 3 questions in regards to health and wellness or something I like or something like that, and you'll let me know how well you know me based on how you answer. So let's get into that. All right, Aisha. We got 3 questions coming up. The first question is, this took a lot because you know me a lot really well, and I had to think of different things and general things, and you are very well versed into diet and health and stuff. So I was like, ooh, this is gonna be tricky. So let's see how you do. What is my favorite guilty pleasure snack? A, sea salt potato chips. B, olive oil popcorn. C, homemade gluten-free cookies. Or D, all of the above.
D, all of the above.
Hey, she coming out the gate strong, people. It is D. Them all my favorite guilty pleasure
I'm like, I've
snacks.
literally eaten all of those with you.
I have it. I love a fresh gluten-free chocolate chip cookie out the oven. Oh my gosh.
All of them when I visited you.
And my popcorn and my chips. I'm gonna mix that together. You already know. All right, you coming out the gate strong. Coming out the gate strong. Number 2. What food can I eat? A, spicy tuna roll. B, masala rice. C, grilled chicken and rice. Or D, chicken kebab.
Grilled chicken and rice. C.
Hey, that is correct. C is correct. And the reason why, I'm going to tell people why, because they're going to be like, what? Because the spicy tuna, I can't eat the spice. The masala rice has way too many different ailments in it. It has a lot of different things and spices and peppers and stuff that I can't eat. And D, chicken kebab, a lot of times they use tomato sauce on it. So it kind of depends. A lot of times they use tomato sauce and tomatoes give me inflammation. Good job, boo. All right. We almost there. So we got one more. All right. Question number 3. This is true or false. I drink water during meals to dilute my stomach acid and slow my digestion. True or false? I'll say it again. Question number 3. True or false? I drink water during meals to dilute my stomach acid and slow digestion.
This is a tricky one.
It's a tricky one. You gotta listen to the wording.
False.
She is correct! We got a winner! And ain't nobody drinking no water to dilute their stomach acid, y'all, and slow the digestion down. No, we gonna get some enzymes or something like that to dilute that stomach acid.
Exactly.
Not no Pepto, not none of that other stuff. Hey, Aeisha is a winner. Yes, people, we have a winner today. Aeisha was ready to take a bite out of my story. Coming up next, we're going to wrap this thing up. I hope this episode has taught you a lot about what you didn't know about living with Crohn's, living with short bowel syndrome, living with a transplant, what to do as a transplant recipient, and the diet, and so much more, as well as Donate Life Month. Make sure we check all that out. There was so much in this episode that I know that you can learn from, and make sure you share it. Like I always say, take care of your body so it can take care of you, or you're going to be dealing with a lot of shit. Aeisha, thank you so much for joining me today. You were amazing. You had so much great information. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on IG at Aeisha, that's AEI, like the vowels, SHA.
Speaks. My other account was hacked.
And you can also find me in my ministry at Miracle Work Ministries. And check out my website, AeishaReese.com.
Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming. I really appreciate you. And I can't wait to do something else. Love you.
Love you.
This has been I Can't Eat Shit Podcast. Thank you so much for watching and listening. You know I appreciate you all so much. If you like what you saw and or heard today, go ahead and like, share, subscribe. I Can't Eat Shit Podcast on YouTube or wherever you stream your podcast. If you watch me, there's bonus material. There's another way to do that. My full cooking segment where I teach you how to modify recipes based on my restrictions. They're oh so good, so make sure you check them out. And for season 2, I got my guests doing commentary along with me, so you know you don't want to miss that. You can also check me out on Instagram at I Can't Eat Shit Podcast or at Shondalia White. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. I Can't Eat Shit! I Can't Eat Shit Podcast is not a replacement for a medical professional. If you need help, seek out a trained medical professional, nutritionist, or therapist to help you with your specific needs.